Welcome to the Modern CPA Success Show, where we're 100% focused on helping accounting firms achieve success. If you're an accounting firm owner who wants to learn how to provide virtual CFO services, then this podcast is for you.
Hello, welcome to today's podcast. I'm very excited about today's guests. We have Jacob Oberlander from Oberlander Co, and we have Tom Wadelton here from Summit CPA, one of our CFOs. And I'm really excited about this guest because it's something we haven't talked about a lot, and I'm going to let Tom go into it a little bit here. But we have a course that we offer for other agencies or other companies out there looking to do what we do, other CPA firms looking to offer CFO services. So Tom, why don't you talk about that a little bit before we kind of let Jacob talk about his experiences and his background.
Okay. Yeah, we have a course named the Virtual CFO Playbook. And I mentioned Playbook because it's a pretty extensive course, 15 different modules. There's a book that's included. There are several other elements where you can get engaged with other accounting firms, but the course itself is a virtual at your own pace. The subtitle is How to Land $60,000 per year clients and provide a killer client experience. You'll learn a lot of what Summit does, and those are, we do find clients, the average of our clients coming in is larger than that $60,000 per year amount. But one of the things I think is really cool about the course is there's lots of exercises that really try to take someone through, if I wanted to offer CFO services, what decisions would I have to make, with the intent being when you get to the end of the course, you're ready to try to offer those services. So an example is we encourage people that they would pick a niche of clients that they may already have or want to target that would be good for these services. So one of the exercises is going through your clients and saying kind of what niche should you pick and how do you develop that, and then further developing that. And so that's our real hope, is that people come out saying, I may not be perfect at it, but I'm actually ready to try to deliver some of these services.
Yeah, great. And I think especially for the listeners of this podcast, it is this podcast, but way, way deeper. So a lot of the topics that we cover in this podcast, we cover in more detail. We cover with videos, we give handouts, we have all sorts of things that really, really complement what goes with this podcast. So if you've been a listener to this podcast and listened to all the episodes, it's definitely something you want to look into. So I think it will help you out. And okay, so Jacob, I'm going to ask you about the course a little bit later, but before we get there, I'd love to hear your background and kind of where you came from and what got you into accounting, and then kind of what made you think about the CFO offerings.
Yeah, hi, thanks so much for having me. So I was an accountant probably since the day I remember. I have probably written down my expenses since the age of 15. So I always knew I wanted to be an accountant. So accountant was my first passion. I started, right when I knew my major is going to be accounting. I graduated. I worked for a different firm 5 years, and we have our own firm, Oberlander Co, for the past 7 years now. We're a staff of 7. I always had a big passion for accounting work. I know, especially in the old days, the traditional legacy accounting firms are focused pretty much on tax service. I always felt the need that business owner, they need much more than accounting, right? The tax is just a small part of it. So there's so much more to it. And that's what I always try doing. At that point, I did not call it virtual CFO. I didn't have the name for it, but I always knew that this is something that I'm looking for, that I want to expand on. So fast forward to approximately 2 years ago, we started offering what we now call virtual CFO services. We start dabbling in with clients. At that time, I tried researching online. I found a few courses offering virtual CFO, but I felt that Summit is way superior because it's an existing firm. It's not just a course that you buy online. I felt I'm working with a team. I almost feel like, and for those who don't know Jamie and Tom and Adam and Jody, it's almost I feel like we're colleagues. So it's like a real firm, and we work together, and they help us a lot. Besides actually taking the course, so we learn a lot from them. So that has helped us a lot if in setting the framework. So one of the things that we accomplish is setting a set framework, how to offer virtual CFO. I know we talk a lot about cadence for accounting firms, how to structure, how to offer weekly meetings. So it's very defined, and if any accountants want to expand on this, by having a framework, it helps you delegate. So we have our org chart, so we know the team leaders, the senior CFO, the senior accountant, the CFO. So it's very nice. It's a very nice process, and it's really something that we we're expanding, and it's really valuable for us, and especially for our clients. Our clients really, and the biggest reward for us is when our clients see that and they look at the charts and they're amazed by it. So yeah.
So tell me about that first client you took on in this space. And again, you said 2 years ago, and you probably weren't calling it CFO services at the time. But tell me about that first client and kind of what what made you go down that path, and then also once you were down that path, what type of things were you doing for them that were different than you were doing before?
Yeah. So our first client at that time, we called it consulting. So which we didn't really have a defined what's included and what's not. And what happened is we were trying to offer them everything, which is a mistake, because you can't just, because first you're looking at the time and what work goes into that. It's impossible. So you want to be very nice, to help them as much as you can. But that's another mistake that we made, is offering them too much. So this is so it was a lot of consulting. What we start doing is later on is we know exactly, we have the financial, the month-end close. We're doing now the projection, which is the big part. We have the pipeline meetings, and then we add it on our own based on specific niche, specific needs of our clients. We have additional, for example, we have an e-commerce seller. We do inventory meeting. So we going into inventory. So I know there's an extra meeting. I know it's all in the module, how to framework that, how to set that up. But that's and what also helped us is with the client is it's just hard to set expectations. With this framework, when we engage a new client, they know exactly what they're getting. And when we set up the weekly meetings, they know exactly, okay, this is week one, this is a lot that Summit helped us with us. It's based on a practical, on reality. It's not conceptual.
Jacob, I'm curious, what were some of the things that you said we offered too much? If you think back to the beginning and help other people learn from some of your mistakes, are there certain things that come to mind that you thought you could offer to clients that you've then gone back and said, okay, that was probably more than what we should have offered?
The main thing that I would say is, we are, as a virtual CFO, if you work a lot with clients, you are their consultant. This is what happens. You grow into the business, but it's within a framework of virtual CFO on projection. It's based on, it's not all, for example, we can help clients. Clients would start asking me, can you help me redesign my website, right? Because we help them a lot. So it's out of scope. Again, I'm friends with my client. I can help them if I want, but it's setting the mindset of the client. Okay, we are as your virtual CFO. Obviously, we will be involved. It will get to the point where we help you with sales, for example. We have the pipeline meetings for the client, so that really helps the client with sales. And we met with the salespeople. So we had this week we had a meeting with a client where they felt that this meeting they want to have the sales leader, just to help them understand. We have the dashboards. I know we're using Reach. We're both using Reach reporting, which is nice, and it gives. So they wanted us to explain it to the salespeople, but putting in a framework, it's not consulting on everything. So that's one example.
Okay. That's a really good example. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, I'm going to throw that question on you too, because it's something that we at Summit struggle with as well. Because right now I'm looking to hire a couple CFOs in-house, and one of my biggest things is, okay, when a new CFO comes in, they're going to start with 4 clients because I can't give them a full book. And I know, Tom, you were at that point, one point in your career, and I think we do that as well, where you're only dealing with 4 or 5 clients, and it's really easy to deal with those 4 or 5 clients and do everything they ask, and go down to the like you said, help with the website. Sure, I can take a look at that, or I can do whatever they ask. And so it's not only a problem you have early on when starting this, but it's also every time you bring in a new CFO. So Tom, can you kind of talk about some of your experiences in that area as well?
I can, and it's a constant thing. And so setting the boundaries with clients becomes really important to do. And it's a pretty ongoing thing. And I'll admit at the beginning, and I wasn't good at setting them, I think I get really frustrated with the clients feeling like they knew they were pushing the bounds of what we had offered and they're going beyond them. And I think I've realized oftentimes they're not even sure where those boundaries are. So the common conversation would be them. And Jacob, you mentioned this. You do a pipeline meeting and they say, okay, could we have maybe one of these once per week? Because this is really helpful to do. That could be an example. Time is the biggest or the most precious commodity, where I just don't have that time. Built into our piece is, if you have CFO services, you get 4 to 6 meetings a month is kind of the usual. And one extra meeting here or there can work, but if it's an ongoing 3 more meetings a month to do the other 3 weeks, we would have that conversation, say, yes, we can. We're going to charge you more. Let's go ahead and add 3 more meetings, and here's the additional cost. Do you still want us to do it? And it's kind of a mix. Some say yes, and others say no. Maybe we can get by doing this, something different. The other thing is probably some more operational kind of things, maybe getting into some collections, where they have people who are not paying on time. And we'll send out some initial like messages coming out, but if it comes into ongoing phone calls that are more account management kind of stuff, the same kind of conversation that happens is, hey, it's going to get to a point where your relationship makes it work better. That's the most important thing. But also you're paying us for fairly simple invoicing, and us doing all of your collections is not in there. My finding is most clients are very reasonable in doing that, but it's also important, I think, to have that conversation early, so you don't find yourself, Jacob, in your example, saying, sure, let's go ahead and meet every single week. And then after 3 months, you no longer have time because you have more clients. And then going back and saying, I can't do it any longer. You probably have a tougher conversation because the client's reasonably saying you did it for a while, and now you're coming and saying it's not working.
Yeah.
And I think that the big thing that goes there, and this is stuff that we've learned as we've grown, is it's all about building the structure and and giving your people the tools to make those decisions and have those conversations. And I think we even, I remember the first client I had 5 years ago. Remember, I was doing everything for him, and then I go into kind of my second onboarding, and I'm doing the same thing for my second client, and then eventually I'm like, wow, if I have to do this for 15 clients, there's no way I'm ever going to do it. So one of the things I added at that point was a review of the contract and the onboarding. We're going to go through the contract. We're going to go through what all these terms mean. We're going to go through I'm not going to pull the contract up and read it to them, but I'm going to have one slide that says, this is what we're providing. This is what you guys are doing. And just so you know, when we say we're doing AR, what that means is we'll send your invoices. If you want anything more than that, we're going to need to go back and renegotiate, and so basically day one, I'm meeting with the client. I'm saying, yeah, Jody is an awesome salesman. He's amazing. He knows exactly what you guys are looking for, but this is how I understood that sales call. Is that right? Are we on the same page here? And so I think, just not to say that was the greatest thing since sliced bread, because we've done like 70 things like that, but it is important to learn as you go and to see, okay, what are the things that we're doing along the way that help us be better, be more efficient, and help us scale? Because that's ultimately what we want to do. Like, I know, Jacob, you're probably an awesome CFO and you're getting better at it, but eventually you're going to want to add some more CFOs. And when you have to move that to someone else, that's when it gets way more difficult. So, so can you talk about some of those learning moments you've had already? I know, again, you said you've been doing this for a couple of years. Can you give me an example of maybe 1 or 2 things you've changed over those 2 years that you've been doing this?
Yes. One is a general. I guess I'll talk about first that we started doing forecasting and projections, like 2 separately. We never had a structure that we have that we do in December. We do now the forecasting we plan out for the year, and then we revise them on a monthly projection, and we do that the comparison, the actuals versus projection versus the forecast. That framework helped us a lot. I think the client, they like that a lot. They can see the original plan, the modifications, and the actuals. So that part is something that the client really feel useful. The other thing that I want to discuss that I feel is a real value is with helping me with the pricing structure, how to charge the clients, because at the end of the day, we're getting very close with the clients and we want to do whatever we can, but we need money on the table, right? So not feeling guilty charging them, you put I know the course is, I think the title of the course is 60,000, I guess, something like that, right? So we then we realized, by us having the liberty of charging, we can offer much more services. It allows us, by allowing us to charge more, it allows us to offer more services, to hire more people. So that's also something we were undercutting our prices, and it wasn't feasible. So it has to make sense in order for us to help the clients. So that's that example.
Okay.
And structuring the pipeline meeting. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing about that, I think that's a great example that you gave. I'm curious so in the course it talks about value-based pricing. I think you talked about. Does that help when you look at the price and say it's a big price, to think in terms of offering it in the value, where at least I would say there are times with our clients where we're comparing that maybe to an existing resource that they have doing that kind of work? Or they might be comparing it to, if I tried to hire a full-time CFO, I'd be caught in this, $150,000 a year range, and we're offering similar services.
Yeah.
Did that part of it help with the pricing, or not?
Definitely. So that time frame, that concept explaining that we're not an upgrade of your existing accountant. We're actually, you're getting a discount from hiring a full-time virtual in-house CFO, which you said 150. I'm in New York. I think it's even more expensive than that, having a full-time CFO. So when we're saying is, instead of having a full-time CFO, we're coming in once a week virtually, and if you're setting the tone, you're setting the expectation from the top down, the client will understand that. And I know you're doing now. You also taught me how to do the weekly pricing versus monthly, which is also, it's pretty much we're like a part of your team. And when I started doing monthly. But if you're doing virtual CFO and you do have weekly meetings, so that's really something that. One more thing about pricing, we're talking about that is, I know it's very popular now. People say value pricing, but most accountants do fixed pricing. They don't do value pricing, they do fixed pricing.
Yep.
So it's not really value pricing, but the Summit CPA model, it's really based on value. And I always followed Ron Baker and all these value pricing, but it wasn't really. And I think Summit is even more advanced than that, because we do now we're into subscription pricing. We actually call it now subscription, right? So that's how we it's monthly subscription. There's no contract. We follow the same model. We don't we tell the clients you pay the first 2 months double. After that it's month to month. If week to week, whatever. If you're not happy, it's a subscription to our service. And it's really based on the value, and we're putting ourselves out there to show them we deliver, and we know we charge them a lot, so we're eager to deliver them.
Yeah, I think that I love value-based pricing, especially for us as a CPA firm. And I think that the example you gave as giving it to a client is good. But I think what also, for any of our listeners listening, I think it helps me as a CPA if I was creating my own firm. Like when I first came to Summit, I was thinking about starting my own thing as well. And I can tell you the prices I had written on paper were a lot cheaper than what Summit was offering, because I think that having that value conversation with Jody and Adam made a ton of sense for me as an employee, but also in our pricing model, because it gives me that permission that, yeah, why can't we charge $65,000 if they were going to hire someone? Like, we know what it costs. We know what it costs to hire you, Jacob. We know what it costs to hire a Tom. Why in the world would I charge anything less than I am to give that much time to these really two smart people to have conversations with you? Why would I charge anything less than that? So it helps me give that, give permission to do it. And then you're surprised that how often people accept it, right? Like at first I was like, man, when I was, like I said, I was trying to build my model out. I'm like, oh yeah, $12,000 a year. If I can get this number of clients, I could make this much. And then like, you see what we recommend and what you talked about. We're talking about $65,000 is our average client, and the number of clients we get, I mean, we still get 2 to 3 clients a month at that price. And so there really is a market out there for it.
Yeah.
Yep. There's definitely a need for it. We just had this week, I had a client, a startup company, and we're talking about projection, and they were so happy. And they're like, are you kidding me? It took me 10 weeks. I did it myself last time. It took me 10 weeks to get a projection for investors. And they're like, we're giving them, not only we're giving them the numbers, we're giving them in a professional deck, right? So that's ready to present to investors. So it's a huge value to clients.
That's a great example of value, right?
That's a
How
very
much
good
is that
example.
worth to
Yeah.
the funding that they might get, the quicker funding, things like
Yep.
that. Yeah, that's excellent.
And it's hard too, because, I know I've probably made this joke before in the podcast, but one of the times once my kids realize what I actually do, they're like, wait a second, the only reason you make money is because of what you think and what you say. And they're like, that makes no sense to my kids, because like, I'm dumb old dad, but like, I think there really is some value in the people in this call, and all the people within your firm. Like, we are really, experienced people that sometimes, the best value we give is just being on the other side of the line for when they have a question or when they want to talk to someone. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that, Jacob, and some of the relationships you developed with your clients over these 2 years, and kind of some of the fun conversations you've had, because I think that's the best part of being a VCFO, is really learning about the companies and having those fun conversations.
Yeah, definitely. So we're really getting close with the clients. We're really getting it's next level that we get to work with a client. We have I don't want to get something too specific in examples that I have in my head. So we really get to the nitty-gritty stuff. Interesting conversation is we have the budget, and we this is a story we had last month. The client went way over budget, so they did a company trip. So I did, as the boss, you have to think long and hard. Are you in the business of making money, or are you in the business of going on vacation, and you're using your business as an excuse? Because they spend a lavish amount on a company outing, but which is more like fun. But that's stuff that you find when you do the budget of actual. They did plan for two annual retreats for the company, but that was like way out of range. But with the forecasting, that's having the financial meeting. It's a lot of fun, because not only that, we didn't touch on the aspect of utilizing technology, the way we pull in data together. The reporting dashboard that we're using helps combining from different sources. We can often connect to our clients, get a lot of resources from their backend. So it's not just financial, like a, revenue line, it's close, website visitors and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a really good example. And I bet you would find sometimes delivering that sort of hard message to the client, it's exactly what they want. I had one at one point, it was a fairly new client, but I thought the leadership team was too relaxed about a really poor pipeline of work and too big of a team. And so I basically told him that in pretty stark terms. And the CEO kind of stopped and said, that was really hard to hear, but that's exactly why we brought you in, because I don't think we were realizing how big this problem was. And I was a little bit anxious telling them, just thinking they might say, hey, you're the new guy. What are you doing telling us what to do? But I'm curious how your client reacted when you asked him that question of, are you trying to make money or go on vacation?
Yeah, no, they took it. They took it for the same thing. The people are responsible, and they get that, and they need that. They actually, and I think his comment is, that's exactly why we hired you. That's like, I think that's what he said. That's exactly, they really want us. They want that nudge, when we do that. And now with the client is saying is, can we skip a month, right? Can we? So I know that summit is completely virtual, so we still have some clients coming down, and that client is like, can we skip this? I told him, no, we should have a short meeting on Zoom, and this is the way we push them to go to Zoom. Good. Which we also preferred. So we're like, you know what, you're distant, you don't have to travel to our office, let's do Zoom, and like, let's rather do a short meeting. But it's important to get that with the CEO, and it's important to get that reality check. Right, you do that once, and sometimes with depending on the size of the company, a bigger company, the CEO is usually not involved in the nitty-gritty stuff. But if they join the financial statement meeting where we discuss the actual, it's a really, and I think I don't have any bad. Whoever all our VCFO clients are amazed beyond expectations.
Right. Here's my favorite part about the way you worded that is you asked it as a question. And here's to me one of the secrets of being a good CFO is he may have answered that as, heck yeah, I'm using my business to pay for vacations. And I think it's good for you to know that. And so I think ultimately you need to know what your client's motives are, and you need to know why is the client running the business? Because everybody does have different motives. And there are business owners out there that are like, yeah, I love to take vacations. So I'm going to run it through my business, and I'm going to make it with my friends who are my employees. And I'm going to take 4 vacations a year as part of that. And say, okay, as long as obviously I'm not doing any tax evasion by doing it, but ultimately, you have to understand their motives. And there's some owners, their motive is to sell a company in 3 years for $10 million. And then there's some owners that are like, I want to create as many jobs in my city as possible. So you really have to understand their motive. And I think the way you ask that question, as opposed to just throwing it at them, I love the way you worded that, because I think that is key in building those relationships, is really understanding what their motives are.
Jacob, when you took the course, scaling is one of the big things, right? I mean, how does it get out of the hands to where you have to be the CEO for every single person? You can rely on other people doing it. Any particular things in the course? I'm thinking of maybe some of the processes or tools that were discussed that helped you think about, I have a better idea of how I might scale this and end up having, 3, 4, 5 CFOs and a group of clients that you wouldn't be able to handle personally.
Yeah, I think for me, it's what I learned a lot is summit structure. Let's call it the org chart. So there's a lot to that, where I know, Jamie, you're the accounting director, I think that helped us. We're a small firm. We're not the size of Summit. We have a 7-person firm. But after doing the course, what we did is I set up an org chart, right? I know we discussed core values. We didn't really get to that. Of course, our business is running on core values, but we did not do that framework yet, But the fact of having, I sat down with everyone in the office, and we all give them new titles. So we have the senior accountants. Setting that structure, helping, for me, my long-term goal is not to be the CFO. We do have someone in office who is serving as a virtual CFO right now, because I'm the leader. I'm sort of like Jamie. I'm the team leader, so I'm still involved in every. But with the client, we'll tell the new clients, I would tell them is that I'm the leader. I don't call it accounting director. I'm the leader. The buck stops with me. But we do have virtual office. So actually, we do 3. We have the senior CFO. We have the senior accountant. We have the virtual CFO, and we have myself on every meeting. But we set it up in a way. Looking at Summit, how we can set it up in a process as much as possible.
Okay.
So
okay.
I think the next step, and I'm not sure if you've gotten this far yet, but I think the next step would be is setting up that structure for different milestones as well. Okay, so right now you're obviously in a role similar to me. At what point would you step into like a operations role and you'd hire a director? At what point do you need that second CFO? At what point do you need that third
Mhm.
CFO? And I think that's the next step is really like scaling and being okay when we hit X million in sales, or when we hit X number of clients, or what is that indicator for you of when you actually need to kind of hit those milestones, and it helps you plan ahead, because then you're like, well, now we're still $1 million away from that, and we're still 20 clients away from that or whatever, and then it's going to happen before you know it. You're like, oh wait, here we are, and you're going to start struggling, and you're like, oh man, this is a lot tougher to manage than I
Yeah.
thought. And then you're going to have to be reactive instead of proactive, which I think
Yeah.
is really important to like lay out that plan.
That's
Right.
a
Right.
really big part of your job still, isn't it, Jamie? Sort of
100%. Yeah.
what's the right number. And then I know another big part of Jamie's job is then looking for, are there ways we could be more efficient? So what's the best team structure for the existing work? So it could be both. I can get more clients with our current structure if we do certain things, automation, things like that. But then also, what's the right number of people so you're not just reacting?
Yeah, that's a big part of what I do. And actually that's what I was working on
Mhm.
today is trying to, I'm an accountant, so trying to put math behind it. Like right now we don't exactly hire by gut, but we have some numbers in place of, okay, this is with this much capacity is when I need to hire that next CFO, or when I need to hire that next accountant. And, I'm trying to, systemize that as well. So it makes that part easier. So, okay, now here we are, this is when we're hiring, and this is when we need to start interviewing. And this is, just kind of putting some process behind that exactly, as opposed to again, we do a process around it, but I'm always revaluing those processes and relooking at those processes. So we're getting close on time here. So I wanted to throw our email address out there. So we love having guests like Jacob on the show. We love having questions. We want to make sure we keep the topics fresh. So our email address is vcfo@summitcpa.net. Again, VCFO at SUMMITCPA.net. So we'd love to hear from you. Tell us what you think of this show, and tell us what you think of Jacob. We'll pass it on to him. Tell him what a great job he's
Mhm.
doing. So before we end the show, any final thoughts? I'll start with you, Jacob.
Any final thoughts? Yeah. So Summit has been, the only thing that I would say is I think accountants have a big challenge of undercutting the prices. So when we started the course, I always felt that I can't charge as much. In reality, and I didn't know if I'll find clients like that would be looking for virtual CFO, but in reality, it's the other way around. The demand is so high, we can't, because of the staff, it's difficult to find the right, it's challenging to find the right virtual CFO for us to hire. So we have more demand for the services than capacity that we can handle. So if people understand that, they would know the value. There's a real value to it, and there aren't that many accounts offering that. So there's a real value to it, and the people who are following the virtual CFO path should know that.
That's a great point, Jacob. And it's funny, I talked to, I've been doing a bunch of interviews this week, and that's one of the things I always tell people is our growth is not limited by customers. Our growth is limited by people.
Mhm.
If I could
Yep.
find 20 great CFOs and space them out over time, like I could probably add 10 new clients a month. Like we're more
For
limited by,
sure. Yeah.
again, I could add 10 CFOs and mess a ton of things up too. So we're more limited by our growth, by our people, and by our processes than
Yeah.
we are the potential customers out there. So that is a great point. What about you,
Yeah.
Tom? Final thoughts for the listeners?
I think my final thought would be, is I think of accountants, and I'm included in this, we like to sit and analyze a lot before we act. And I'm afraid that there's a feeling of, I really have to have it perfect from pricing to delivery to everything to take that first step. And I know from working here, I think we do a lot of things right. We also do a lot of things and make mistakes and then pivot and say, okay, let's change. That would be my encouragement for someone thinking about this is, okay, take the course. It'll give you great information, but have in your mind, I'm going to be talking to my existing clients within 2 months of finishing the course and opening this up. And I'm going to start this and I'm going to learn a lot. Maybe I end up pivoting to a client and saying, hey, I know I gave you this pricing. It's different than what it needs to be. Let's make modifications. Let's change and do that. That'd probably be my biggest thing. I think people need to take the risk and go ahead and get started, because they're going to find it's probably not as hard as they think, and they'll learn so much.
Yep, that's another great point. So yeah, I appreciate having you guys both on the show. I think this podcast will be a hit. I think a lot of people will listen to it, and like Tom said, not be afraid to just try it. Try it with one client. Try it with one of your existing clients, and again, don't be afraid to make mistakes. I mean, we could do a whole course on all the mistakes we made, and in fact, I think that's
Yeah.
kind of what
So
we did. So,
Yeah.
all right, thank you guys.
Good. Thank you very
okay.
much.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day. Bye bye.
Thanks, you too.
Enjoy this episode? Visit our website at summitcpa.net to get more tips and strategies for achieving modern CPA firm success. We're here to be a resource in this ever-changing industry.